So I wanted to spend a few minutes today talking about desktop as a service and how to engage a conversation with either a new customer or existing customer. So we identify there's roughly 10 bullet points or topics, right, to talk about with the customer that we feel like are the best in order to uncover that. Now at this point, we obviously understand what the features and benefits are of a desktop as a service type solution. So now at this point, understanding that you know that, we can then engage the customer to better understand how this can help them and correlate those accordingly. So the first thing that you want to understand is how many employees does this company have? So what we see within the market from a undersized IT staff is a sub 2% ratio of IT resources versus employees. So for simple math, that's if there's 100 employees, there's 2 or less IT resources. What that means is they're going to be very limited, right? They're going to have little time to do more engaging things within the business, and desktop as a service is something that's going to be able to free them up and allow them to standardize what they're doing and of course streamline technology. The second thing that we do is you always want to understand how are they going to leverage technology to streamline their business. And what this means is if you're doing things a legacy type way, you're not really getting into the next level, right? There's so many benefits that come with desktop as a service, but how are they actually leveraging that technology to increase those efficiencies, whether that's their time, their resources, their quality of life from an IT perspective, or if that's allowing their remote employees to access applications in a better way, or if that's performance or security or whatever it is. But what's their plan around that? And that's very typical with what is your cloud strategy, right? How are you leveraging this technology to increase the efficiencies of your business, of course? So understand that's open-ended and it's going to take you in a very good direction. The other thing we always want to know is compelling events are huge, right? So what are some of the challenges that they're seeing today? Understand what their day-to-day looks like. What are some issues that they're having, and then see how some of those issues could potentially be augmented with desktop as a service, right? Which is obviously what you want to understand is how can you position that solution to help them out and fill any type of gaps that they have on their side. So I talked a little bit before about standardization. This is huge, and I think for a lot of the partner community, a lot of technologists out there, we understand that less is more, right? And standardization is key. There's no better way to standardize the employee experience of how they access those applications than desktop as a service. It's a single image where they're accessing all their production workloads that's pushed out across all the employees and is managed from a single interface on the back end. I mean, it's huge. And what this also does is allow for patching and updates, right, for the workstations to enable that piece, as well as the onboarding and terminating of new hires. 2 big things that IT staff deal with on a daily basis that if not standardized and no clean path to manage this, it becomes very hodgepodge, right, and kind of bolt on, and they have trouble kind of keeping up with that. So if somebody were to ask me, what is the biggest benefit of desktop as a service? I'm going to say the ability to access your core line of business applications anytime, any place, anywhere. So this will, of course, allow for a remote employee to have the same experience as an employee that's going to be on site, which is huge, right, within these businesses. It's going to allow for them to hire talent versus location, and also encourage them to be able to work, obviously, after hours, but to be able to access those applications. That's huge. What I think is the biggest thing. So what I would ask the question is, how are they accessing those applications? What are you guys doing? How are your employees accessing these applications today outside of the 4 walls of the business? Is it a VPN? Is it RDS? Are they doing virtual desktop today? What is that? How is that operating? If there's a limitation there, let's talk about that, right? Obviously, then you just uncovered a potential opportunity for desktop as a service. One of the other good topics to understand is if you haven't had this conversation with them before, knowing your customer and knowing what they're strong at and what their experience is huge. So one of the things that I would, of course, encourage you to ask is, what do they know about, VDI or desktop as a service? Are they aware that this is something that's actually available to them today as a service, as opposed to having to do this yourself, procure licensing and gear and manage it from your own farm? So encourage the as a service model, obviously by educating them on, of course, what's available to them. So the last 2 parts that we're going to talk about that I feel like are some of the biggest drivers in this space at all, they can be had at the IT director level or can be had at the C level, is the financial aspect of their business from technology, as well as the compliance and security. So starting off with the finance, I think everybody understands now that there's a big shift in going from traditional CapEx to OpEx. So obviously, when it comes to desktop as a service, we are now enabling a pure OpEx model for their technology. But also, if you get even more granular, you're able to you're able to pinpoint an actual price or put a dollar sign on each employee and have a predictable cost around what it costs to run IT for that person. Point being, if you have 100 employees and it costs $10,000 a month, right, for simple math, we understand that that's $100 per employee, right, to run that technology. So if there's an M&A or if there's some predictability that they're needing around their budgeting, they have it. It's very simple and it's done. The last thing we'll talk about is compliance. One of the biggest drivers of companies moving to the hosted cloud or hosted managed cloud model is keeping up with the standards and regulations that are set forth by that compliance company. So, for example, healthcare, very early adopter, right? Healthcare traditionally had very lean IT resources, right? Less than 2%. And they were having trouble keeping up with the constant changing of the standards and regulations by HIPAA. So one way for them to remove that particular point of failure would be for them to move to a cloud model where that company is handling all those back-end compliances and regulations, therefore enabling that compliance on their end. The other side is the financial piece. We've seen finance pivot very hard into the hosted model, from traditional hosting themselves on-site or a data center to a fully hosted model. A lot of this has to do with the PCI and with the compliances that they're up against, driving them to that by the technology, by needing to understand that they have to be there. So where's the data actually going to be? Big drivers. So those two things are huge. And the last thing when it comes to security and compliance is around bringing your own device, which kind of comes with the finance side as well as security. You no longer have to employ, when you have a new employee, give them a desktop and let them go and take it. You can now bring in their own desktop. The information is going to be secure. It's all going to be done through the virtual desktop, therefore enabling them to bring their own device, cutting the cost on the CapEx side by not having to go out there and procure more hardware, and thus streamlining standardizing the onboarding process for employees. So last, don't feel like you need to memorize all this stuff. If you want to be able to take some of this information with you when you're having the conversations or to get it started, there's a PDF on this page you can download. Take it with you. These are good questions to ask. Whether there's an opportunity or not for them, understand their business, understand the technology, and how you can potentially help them.